I had someone, okay, it was our brother. Last time I saw our brother, I try to avoid the topic of politics and religion because I just don't want to go there with him. All right. He pulls out all the usual stops. And instead of having a conversation, it's usually I'm gonna throw shit at the wall and see what sticks.
Ah,
Yeah.
the old Gish Gallop.
Yes. Yes. But he asked me this question, do you think murder is wrong? Okay. Now what I asked. First of all, this very generic question. First, let's define what wrong means. Okay.
Yeah.
Then let's define what murder means, because that can be quite the spectrum, right? What do we determine what is wrong? Is it a sin against a deity? Is it something that me, as a secular humanist, is just like, I view that as wrong because that harms someone else? And then you have to look at the term murder. I don't think this is black and white. There is no yes or no here. There is a conversation that ended abruptly because of who I was talking to. But I wanted to have the conversation, be like, murder? Okay, well, in what context? I asked what context. I said, is it someone who is defending themselves and their family against someone who's trying to cause them harm? Is it someone who blatantly just kills someone because they want to take what that other person has? There's a lot of different ways that we can define both of those terms. We have to come, and if we can't agree on what the definitions are, then we may as well not continue the conversation. We have to get first clarify what we're both talking about. Otherwise, we are going to be talking over each other and having an argument instead of having a productive conversation, which is what we should be doing. Don't you just push your narrative on me and then expect me to be like, oh, you got me there. Okay. Yeah. No, not going to happen. Okay.
Right. Your buzzwords don't work on me.
We mainly talk about things from the religious perspective here. We don't really touch on politics very much. I know you're an activist, Patty. You have a sign that says Black Lives Matter behind you. And I realize this is somehow triggering a lot of people too. And I think it's because of, again, it's going back to those negative connotations that people view it as a terrorist organization or whatnot, because they're looking at people who, I don't know, throw fireballs into businesses and such and thinking, oh, they represent the whole organization, the whole concept. Maybe you want to talk about that a little bit, but again, it doesn't have to be just one word. In this case, that is a movement showing that, hey, we care about these people's lives. It doesn't mean that other people's lives don't matter. It means that we need to zero in on these people who have been marginalized and their voices have not been heard for so fucking long, that we need to draw attention to it. So do you want to talk about that a little bit and that propaganda?
I kind of feel like you just wrapped that up with a sweet little bow there, Nancy. You're absolutely right. I think that all of the things we're talking about, the othering that goes on in a high control situation. Last episode we talked about how we can see these measures of control happening in the real world, not just in religious things, as you mentioned. And this is a
Mm-hmm.
perfect example of that because all of the
Right.
people who maybe feel a little bit down and out, maybe like their life didn't go the way they wanted, and they can't possibly think that it was something they did wrong. There's that word again. All these people have grown up in an America that promised them the American dream, that everything would be beautiful and wonderful and they'd have, milk and honey flowing and all of the riches of the world would be theirs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that is what is promised not only in churches, but that's kind of what's promised with the American dream. And then inflation and the reality of our monetary system, our caste system comes into play, and people grow up and they're like, this isn't what I thought I was promised, right? It's their own little version of the world tomorrow on American exceptionalism. And so when they realize, like, oh, this isn't how I thought it should be, and we have this like pull yourself up by the bootstraps mentality in our country. So then they're taking like, oh, this isn't how it was supposed to be. It must be that there's something wrong with me, that it's my fault. But that is such a painful concept and people have a hard time taking that on board, which, you know, they probably shouldn't because we should see the systems for what they are and what they've done to us. But I think those folks in a situation like that are totally primed to hear, well, hey, you would have had the perfect life, except there's these people over here who are taking your jobs. There's these people over here who think that they deserve more than you. And
Mhm.
while those things aren't true, taking someone who's primed for that and feeding them little bits of information that help them think that these people are against them and taking away what they should have had is
Mhm.
very powerful toward turning people against each other. And when we are turned against each other, we don't stand up for our rights. When we're turned against each other, we don't join together to fight the powers that are making our lives terrible. We don't
Mhm.
see it because we're too busy being pointed at each other. This fight in this country for a better world is not left versus right. The people who have political power in this country would very much like us to continue thinking that this fight is red versus blue, black versus white,
Mhm.
but it isn't, or
Right.
left versus right. None of those things are true. This is all of us fucking in this together because I will say it over and over. We are 8 billion of us organisms living here on this planet together, which is a rock flying through
Flying through
space.
space.
Yeah. And
Sorry,
so
you've said it
what
before.
I know I do. It's my thing.
Force
Like,
Valakai would be proud.
so here we are, and it's only us on this rock. Like, we have to work together to make it work for us. Right. And so if we can't have that viewpoint on it, it's all too easy for us to be pointed at each other, and helping us focus on what we don't have and what wrongs were done to us or supposedly done to us is so important if you want to control people.